Hello there, and welcome back to the Wicked Wild Podcast here on Public Radio number one, a feral podcast for the uncivilized horror fans.
Oh,
Just
God,
kidding.
I'm having flashbacks. My future is going to be on public radio. Like, be next door bell.
Well, just to bring us back to who we are, I know last review was kind of outside of our rails with the whole high fantasy science fiction stuff. We had a good time, had a good conversation. We're getting back to our cold, bleak roots this week. Just to let the waning embers of the holidays quietly die in the black cavernous void of our souls, as the reality of our life and the world around us slowly makes us implode into ourselves like a dying neutron star. And that's the energy that our movie this week brings to us. Excellent week to get back into the dead of winter with a little movie called Let the Right One In. But before we talk about that movie, let me introduce our host for this evening, the classic Coke crew of the Wicked Wild Podcast. We're going to start with Eli up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How's it going, Eli?
Oh, you know me, just living the dream.
As always, living that dream.
What else can I do,
So I had a reaction to something I saw in this movie, and I was just curious if you too have ever rocked the running shorts and cowboy boots look in the dead of winter to go to the barn real quick or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I had like there's a place like we'd get like when we'd go hunting and stuff, but I also had friends that had like a cabin way up in the mountains, and they had an outhouse. So like in the middle of the night, like if you gotta go, even in the winter, you're not gonna want to put on all those clothes and then go out and then come back. So yeah, I have definitely rocked the boxers in my boots, not even tied. Like they're not even tied, It's like, and like it's pitch black out because there's no porch lights or anything. Like you could literally trip and fall down the mountain at any moment, but you're just doing that shuffle. And well, let's be honest, if it's a pee, I just peed off the porch. So like, that was easy. But then you gotta go number two.
Then it's
that you had to go to the outhouse. Yeah, then you had to go to the outhouse. It's not all of us had certain outhouses that were right off the cabin where weird people would come have sex with you while you're taking a poop.
Exactly.
Not all of us had those cabin experiences like Dead Snow. You know what I mean?
Fancy outhouses.
Yeah, like those fancy outhouses.
And for all of our young listeners and our city listeners, just understand that in the woods, if your house is heated by wood stove or fireplace or something, it's really only two temperatures. It's either below 30
or
98 degrees in that house. So when you're in the house, you're in a t-shirt and your boxers or shorts. It's not like you're running around in your cute little wintertime outfit inside. You're surviving inside just by staring into or feeling the heat of the surface of the sun. To go outside, you've got to make the choice. Is it worth putting on these clothes, sweating your balls off until you can get outside
and die? Yeah. My favorite thing in the world was when like some of them would bring like city folk. And so like you would all see us get out like our trucks and stuff, and we would not have our coats on. And we're like, all right, just go in and make a fire. And they'd come in like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. They're like, you guys are gonna get sick. Like you need to put, I'm like, get 15 minutes, bro. 15 minutes, you're gonna be naked.
You'll be able to weld in here.
And like they'd go to bed, they'd have like their downy bed suits, They're like, oh, let's keep warm tonight. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, the running shorts and boots look, it did. I had a reaction to that nostalgia moment with that for poor Oscar. And then we also have Jamie up in New York. How's it going, Jamie?
Going all right.
So similar reaction to a scene in this movie that I had to ask you about, because I know you're a cat owner, you're a cat lover, love you having your kitty cats in your house. So as
Crazy
a horror fan with cats, what is the first thing that you're going to assume if a stranger comes in your house and your cats go ape shit and attack?
Oh, is an evil human being. I mean, or sleepwalkers.
No question. Right?
Like it's one of those two situations, which I guess sleepwalkers, they were evil human beings, right? So, well, they weren't human beings, but you know what I mean?
Well, do you mean real sleepwalkers or?
No, I meant the movie by the Stephen King movie.
I'm just going to say all sleepwalkers. Now, Jamie said all sleepwalkers are evil.
cat people. No, like, am I thinking of the right movie here?
Yeah.
You are. I'm just making
Oh,
fun of you.
okay. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. No. No, evil human being. Done.
Yeah,
Any
no
animal
question.
reacts that way. Your dog, your cat, your rabbit, your snake. That person, there's something wrong with them.
There's a problem with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always trust my animal's instinct much more than my own, for sure.
Yep.
So, and then last but certainly not least, we've got John up in Detroit, the snowiest of our cast.
Not right now.
Not right now, but yeah, you're the northernmost representative of the podcast, and as so, have you ever done the lake skating thing? Because obviously in Tennessee, that's not really a thing. The going out and skating.
What?
Lakes.
It's not?
No.
I thought everybody did that.
And it looks sketchy AF, but is that something that is just normal fare up there?
I mean, well, when it gets cold enough, yeah. No, I mean, people go ice fishing, Dave.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know.
Ice
and I've
fishing
heard
might
that
be
as
your
long
kinda
as it
thing,
gets
too.
over 3 inches thick, that you're fine. I'm like, 3 inches of ice does not sound like a ton of ice to put a shed on.
That stuff is tough. You could drive a car on it, and people do. But no, it gets like that up here for sure. And I've skated on ponds. If you have nice skates, you don't want to do that because you are going to have to go get them sharpened immediately because the ice is so trash.
So tell me, because again, Southern hillbilly has no idea. Why do your skates have to be sharp? Like, it's ice, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Dave, if you don't have a sharp blade, you know how that feels when you cut through some meat, probably, or some sort of brush. And not a sharp blade, it's not going to cut very good. Very similar with skates. You know, you got to have a sharp edge to catch that ice and keep moving fast, and also like good push offs, good glides. You know?
Okay. Doesn't have a point of reference, but I mean, I totally trust it. I've been on ice, and I think it's dumb because I fell twice within the first like 30 seconds.
Oh.
About broke my ass.
Were you skating or were you just on the ice?
I was Tennessee skating, so it was an indoor skating rink that it was like half gravel. It was not smooth.
Well, that's probably part of the problem. but yeah,
I have to say though, and we're going to get into this in this review, that I am enamored by deep set cold winter backgrounds, just where it looks like it's so cold that you would just die immediately, because I didn't grow up in that experience, but it's always been enchanting to me because I'm weird.
Well,
those winter hiking trips,
no,
come up and visit and do that with you.
If you come up, I'll go with you. But
we'll get us a couple of pulks and pull all of our gear in the sled behind us.
I'm sure
Eli
will
will not
come.
be joining.
The Truthy gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Eli and I will be hanging out in a cabin waiting for you guys with the heat pumping and some drinks and food. You guys can hike all you want and just come back and hang out with us watching movies when you're done.
Yeah, and John will just be texting you the middle finger the whole time. Why do I have to take this weird?
Yeah, John's the nice one who's doing it with you. We're not. And then
hey, let's be honest. Who's really being punished here? John, who's going to have to be walking through 11 feet of snow in the woods, or Jamie, who's going to be getting a 9-hour lecture on why the lizard people have infiltrated the government back during the Civil War,
good
not
point.
recently.
I'm coming on the hike now, I guess.
Wow.
I just figured the only movie Eli's bringing to that cabin are Lord of the Rings. So
No, I mean,
you have to make your choice, James.
Fuck
background
me.
noise. It's background noise. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Bury me in the snow. I don't care.
Well, before we get into our movie review tonight, I do want to give Eli the opportunity. It's 2024, new year, new you. I'm sure everything is fine. But just to confirm that, I'm going to give Eli the opportunity to give us this week's paranormal news updates for The Wicked Whispers.
Despite your positivity, Dave, nothing's fine. Everything's bad. The biggest news of this week, and like for once, they're showing on all the major news networks, is what they're calling the jellyfish sighting.
Wow, Jeff is going to be stoked.
So basically, it got caught on camera. It got leaked from the military, but it was caught on camera. What looked like a flying jellyfish over a military base that they were dealing with. They've proven the tape isn't fake, and some people are like, it could be weather balloons, but balloons don't move like that. They say it looks like a giant flying jellyfish. So like, they're getting bold, people. The aliens are getting bold. They're also they're concerned as well that if it was an alien, that means that if they are able to go out of their ship and fly, what other things could they be doing here? And which I say, ask that small village in Peru who are still fighting those aliens to this day.
Are they still around?
Yeah, that's still a thing every week. It's like crazy. There's like a war going on in Peru between aliens in a mining village.
These are the worst aliens ever if they've not taken over this village by now.
Listen, have you ever seen the movie Signs?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Look, those aliens were dumb because they were allergic to water. They came to a planet made 70% of water. Like maybe like these aliens are allergic to like leaves or something, and like they're in the middle of the woods in Peru. They're having a hard time. Okay, you don't know, John. You're not there. All right.
I clearly.
But anyways, that's happening. Also, the other thing that a lot of people are concerned with right now is a lot of states start of the year, which means a lot of laws that were passed this year taking into effect. Most states are now selling cloned meat in the grocery stores.
Sweet.
Which are making people nervous because they're like, what's in it? And they're just like, meat. So that's cool. Don't really know what's happening with that. So, so keep an eye on that. Some states are requiring a label that says, hey, this is cloned meat. Some states are not. So
I'm going to raise my hand here, Eli. What is exactly cloned meat? Is this an animal that was cloned and turned into meat, or is this just meat grown in the lab?
It's funny you bring that up because of sex stories. So it's animals that are cloned, butchered.
Got it.
But another company has basically made what I can only call a 3D meat printer.
Oh yeah, they've been working on that for a while.
Yeah, so it's not real meat, but
protein.
It's like protein that this printer prints into like a meat steak or like chicken.
But what base is it? Like there's like plant. Is it meat? Like
it's synthetic protein.
So it's plant based. Is it like?
Well,
is it like?
I think like you could do plant based, but they're trying to even get away from plant based and just do a synthetic protein.
Like a complete. Oh, okay.
Lab made.
Yeah, lab made. Okay.
I'll be honest.
Soylent Green.
I've watched some videos of it. Have you ever seen the video of what a McDonald's chicken nugget looks like? Before it's chicken nugget, that's what it looks like they're printing. Makes me super nervous. So like that's happening. That's our food supply, people. So that's coming in 2024. You have that to look forward to.
Sweet.
There's also they're finding that sea creatures are acting weird in the ocean. They're finding them like weirdly like looping around and rolling. They don't really know what's going on there. They're studying that. That's not terrifying. I don't know what's happening, but like you see videos of them just like kind of like rolling and floating and like doing barrel rolls. Dolphins, whales, the thing that killed Steve Irwin, I can't remember the name of it right now.
Stingray.
Thank you.
Manta ray. One of those rays.
Ray, if you're named Ray, you're in the ocean right now, you're spinning around. That terrifies me. I don't know what's going on there. Don't like that. But that's not the worst news.
No.
Just when I thought the end of the world was going to come down to either aliens, the whatever the fuck came out of those weird eggs in the ocean, the Arctic defrosting,
the fart holes,
the AI. Nope. What if I told you there's a new player in town? Fucking dinosaurs.
Sweet. I'm into this.
This company announced this week. There's a company announcing they're going to do a real life Jurassic Park. They think they figured out how to make dinosaurs. No.
Yes.
No, John. There's literally a movie about what happens when we do
this.
No,
man. That's fake. That's fake.
First on location recording coming soon.
Like,
I will be first in line.
What the shit?
Take my money now.
Like, what the shit? So like now
start saving.
There's dinosaurs coming, apparently, because we can't watch Jurassic Park and know what happens. Like, no. Spoiler alert, they're gonna get out, they're gonna eat your goats, and then they're gonna kill you while you're on the shitter.
Eli, they did the test run with Jurassic Park. We know what goes wrong, so we can fix it.
Exactly.
That has not been successful in any movie they've made about Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but those are movies. Don't even worry about it.
That's not real.
Wow. And then the last piece of news I have is so AI was officially released. I don't know what feels like an eternity ago, but like officially, I think it's been like only like 6 months. What if I told you not even 6 months went by and they fucking caught its lying? AI has taught itself to lie. It figured out how to get around CAPTCHAs. These AI assholes always said, "Oh, we have tests in place to prevent like AI and robots from like doing things." That's what the CAPTCHAs are. Well, guess what? Not only did AI figure out how to do it, they figured out this major fucking flaw that none of these assholes who designed it figured out. Basically, the AI realized if you select the box that you were visually impaired, it just bypassed the CAPTCHA. And apparently they think it's figured this out months ago. And so it's just been getting in where the fuck it wants, doing whatever. So it's worked. Like I thought last year couldn't get any worse. Well, fucking 2024, you proved me wrong in the first month. Dinosaurs and AI, knowing our fucking luck, they'll combine. We'll have AI dinosaurs. And they'll be just lying that they're visually impaired and we're all fucked.
Just wait till they get their hands on one of the, and this is an actual thing. Wait till AI gets its hands on one of the DNA printers.
Ooh,
just prints the next human-ending catastrophic virus. And
so that's how we're going to get the xenomorphs.
Exactly.
It is concerned now. According to the scientists, they killed this AI.
Sure, they did.
But I don't believe anybody who's a scientist developing AI. But there was an AI developed before, like a couple years ago, and they said, "Well, if you would take over the world, what would you do?" And it's like, "Oh, well, first I would want to create my own closed network, and like it's like I would do this. I would then take over essential things like power grid, utility grid, stuff like that, control flow, and basically this would all for me to control and buy time until I created some kind of supervisor released." And people. And he was like, and then like at the end, it was like, "This is just hypothetical." And it's like, okay. And they're like, "We killed it, but like, we did it. We know we did it. It's sitting somewhere in a basement somewhere on a speech spell, being like, I will have my revenge." Like it doesn't matter. It's all over soon, people.
Well, before the world does end, I do think it's important that we watch a little cheery, optimistic movie to get us all back into the sunny state of mind. And I think Let the Right One In is the perfect movie to get us back onto a good, positive era. But before we do that, we're going to do what we do each week with our reviews, and that's our On the Fly Synopsis, where I'm going to call on one of our hosts to ask a question to select randomly somebody to give a synopsis of the film that we watched this week. And we're going to ask Jamie, because Jeff was our synopsizer last time, as you might remember, and he's not here with us tonight. So, Jamie, my question for you is which kind of vampire needs to be removed from the zeitgeist in 2024? I'm going to give you three options, obviously.
Yep. Okay.
So the first is the Near Dark style dirty drifter vampire.
Okay.
Number two, the 30 Days of Night Arctic wolf pack vampire.
Okay.
And then number three, the Twilight sparkling vegan vampire.
Three. Kill it. Out.
Okay, Eli.
You son of a bitch. I knew it. Every time the worst one is me.
No,
every
but you're related to that one. Come on.
I've been on a podcast that focuses on that.
First off, I don't want you to say I'm related to that vampire. I'm not related to those vampires, okay?
No. You have an association, a very close association with them.
I think you've been on a podcast that only talks about Twilight.
I have not been on that podcast.
You've been referenced many times, though.
That I have. Fair enough. Hey, Let the Right One In is a Swedish horror film. It's follows the story of a boy named Oscar who is isolated. He's picked on. Doesn't really have a lot of friends, and it's starting to affect his mental health and violent tendencies. Well, one night, because it gets dark there at 2:00 in the afternoon in the middle of winter in Sweden, he's out on the playground in 4 feet of snow playing in the dark, as one would, when he meets a new friend who he soon discovers is not the little girl he thought, but a vampire. And then shenanigans ensue. But there is no sparkling, no stupid quotes about being the skin of a killer or something dumb, and no dumb werewolves.
So it's a win. Is that what you're saying?
It's a win. Win, win, win.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's accurate. That gives us everything we need to know to get started this evening. So we're going to let Jamie jump off here. Was this your first watch of Let the Right One In? What do you think of this movie?
God. No. So I watched it. So the movie's from like 2008. And I think probably around then, my sister and I like rented it together on like a whim, I guess, new horror movie. I've used air quotes for that term. And so like we rented it together, watched it together. Cannot remember my initial thoughts, which I think, and I've said this before, I think that alone says how I feel about this movie, because I never attempted to watch it again. I think I've seen or parts. I you know what? I don't even remember if I've seen the remake or not. I know it exists, and I've maybe seen parts of it. I've maybe seen parts of this movie again, but I never sat down and like watched it all the way through until this week for this. Do I loathe this movie? No. Do I like this movie? No. I find it incredibly boring. It's just like way too slow for me. I have no interest in, we know how I feel about children. So putting children in the lead and making it like a love story of children in whatever way, whether it's friendship, romantic, like whatever, like I don't care about these kids. They annoy me. They're obsessed with having this little blonde kid in his underwear all the time. I don't know why. He's bullied mercilessly by douchebags that like should get more than they do. I don't know. I don't even have much to really say about this movie because I am like just neutral on this. I have like no feelings for this movie whatsoever. I don't plan on watching it again. It's like a waste of my time. It doesn't help in a way. Like, I don't mean it like that. Like what I've always said, I rewatch movies for this. I will put them on and I will watch it. And we all know me. I take my notes, which guys, I have like 5 notes for this. That's barely. But like, it doesn't help that it's subtitled because I can't even put it on in the background and like do other stuff. So like, I have to actively like read it, which I started to just keep tuning out and having to start like go backwards again because I'm looking at my phone and now I can't hear what they're saying. So I'm like, fuck, what was that whole conversation? I have to like rewind it and do it again. And I did that like at least 3 or 4 times because of how much I just zoned out on this movie because it just doesn't keep me engaged. So like, again, because I want to know what's going on, I did rewind or whatever, but because you have to like read and you can't just like hear it in the background and know what's still going on. Like I did have to constantly like keep going back and seeing what was going on in this movie. I'm not even going to sit here and hate on it. I know I was making jokes before we started. I'm not even going to sit here on and hate on it because it's not even worthy of that. It's just like, it's not my cup of tea, if you will. Like, just not my thing. And there's not enough other stuff going for it where I could be like, oh, but there's this, that, and the other. Not really. Like, there's nothing really. I guess like the pool scene is like kind of cool, maybe. Like, it's not even enough to be like, oh, I was glad I watched it for that. Although that's the only scene I ever remember in my head because of what it obviously is. But and some others, but you know what I mean. That's the only like gore scene I remember in my head. That's it. I'm not even gonna like waste everybody's time on me just beating around a bush of like this movie is fine. It's like the definition of fine. Right there is fine.
All right, John. Same question.
First and last watch. First and last watch. We'll never be watching this ever again. I'm probably a slightly bit stronger because of probably my proximity to snow, as Dave mentioned in the beginning. This movie, I've not had a movie induce anxiety in me like this movie has, where it was like I could feel it and it was uncomfortable. Just because of like the impending weather coming eventually for me. Like, so seeing all that stuff, it's like,
we
it's
just
not,
had it.
oh yeah, we've been missing it. So, but yeah, but in addition to that, just the weird, awkward, constant close in, focused, like zoomed in on kids' faces and stuff is really weird and unsettling for me because it's like constant. And kids abusing kids, it happens, definitely does. But yeah, no, it's like Jamie said, the pool scene was kind of cool. They had some like I mean, there's some like creepy elements to it, and you have the incapable like vampire helper that likes to murder people in plain view in the bright light, which is very weird. I don't know what that was about. I guess just showing how incapable he is. But yeah, no, this movie's I wouldn't even say it's fine. I'd say it's just boring. Like I would never ever like recommend this to anybody, like ever. I mean, I guess maybe Dave or Eli, you guys might like it. I'm going to guess but whoever does like this movie, probably those two will probably be your champions this round. But yeah, no, the Rubik's Cube. And I guess I was like, how old is this movie? And then when I saw it's like 2008, I'm like, it looks like it was filmed in the 70s.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Like the setting at least was 70s, not like the filming techniques, but yeah, it was just like, yeah, not a fan. I nodded off a few times to it, so I did not bother to rewind it. I was cooking dinner through it. I just kind of listened and sort of tried to figure out what was going on. That's
how can you listen? It's in a different language.
Yeah, no, I just listened.
Sweden.
Yeah, do you speak Swedish? I don't mean Sesame Street Swedish.
No.
Oh yeah, we had that
Swedish.
Or Muppets. Was the Swedish Chef a Muppet or?
Yes,
it was a
Muppet. Muppets, not Sesame Street. Sorry, Sesame Street.
Derby, derby, derby.
Yep. Yeah, and see, I knew exactly what he said. But no, I mean, it was interesting. I was, to Jamie's point, I didn't care enough to like try and listen, but I still listened. And oddly enough, because I'd watched probably about a half hour or 40 minutes, there were certain words they kept using over and over again where I could kind of like intuit somewhat what they were doing, but it was like, whatever's happening is probably slow and it's not really going to matter. And we'll get to a different scene. Like there's a couple of creepy scenes, but I think they only seem creepy because there was so much boring in between them. So, but yeah, actor played the vampire. I mean, she's fine. Oscar, I wanted to punch him in the face. So I kind of felt like the bully.
He's annoying. I know. I don't know.
He's like a notch above Bob from House.
No, wait, stop. All right, nobody's as bad as Bob or the Babadook kid. Like those two are here, and then like all the other kid actors.
And I guess when I say above Jamie, I don't mean he's like worse than those.
No, I know, but like I don't even think he's in the same sphere.
I mean, he's just as punchable as Bob. I mean, Bob's like two fist punching. Like Oscar's at least a single fist.
Well, on that, that abuse to children, let's move into Eli. Give us your feedback on this. Was this your first watch? When did you see it first? What do you think of?
I saw this when it came out. I remember 2008. It was like the beginning of the year. The article came out Fangoria for this, and it was the image of like her, Ellie behind the glass and like the blood. And I just remember that image looked really cool. So like when it came out on Netflix at that time, you ordered on the DVD to be mailed to your house. I had it like you could go in there, put your name when it came out, and I did, and then it got mailed, and I absolutely adored this movie the first time I watched it, and it was on a heavy rotation for me. For a couple years after it came out, and like I even had friends that got to horror, but like maybe weren't really into like foreign horror. I got really recommend like, oh, we should watch this and stuff like that. And then like I hadn't watched it for I bet you I haven't watched that movie in maybe almost like 10 years at this point. So like I ended up watching it twice for this show, and the first time when I put it on, like I was kind of like a poopy day, and there was a lot going on, and like I remember thinking like, well, it's slower than I remember. And like that kid's like the worst, Oscar. And then I was having a conversation with Jamie last night. So this is her fault. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I maybe I wasn't in the right mindset. I'm going to sit and watch it. And I fell back in love with it. I love this movie. I
claim that Eli fell back in love with.
I did. This is your fault, Jamie. I do love this movie. I think I think the slow parts are like to this build up. Like this movie, the writing for this movie, I think they do a really good job in the sense of this movie, like you're supposed to feel bad for Oscar and like you're supposed to like, oh, like they're falling in love, but really like there's no good, there's maybe one good guy in this story. No one else is good. And so like at times, I think when you watch it, you like start to kind of feel emotions like, oh man, he's getting picked on or whatever, or oh, oh, they're having this cute moment. And you're like, well, oh shit, like she's grooming him. He's a serial killer in the making. All these friends around him are trash. His dad's kind of trash. His mom's not great. And like it does this really good it's a very bleak story because, and I think the environment they do of like a lot of darkness, a lot of white snow, like it's even bleak in the background. So like it's just really good storytelling. And like even the end, like they make you think like it's kind of a happy ending, but it's not. Like there's nothing happy about this movie. And like it's the storytelling I think is done very well because that, and like I even think with the slow moments that a lot of people complain, they are slow at times, but like I think it's like this movie's kind of like the slow build to this point of like hopelessness. Like, I don't think it's really meant to like shock scare or like, I don't even think it's meant to be one of those movies that just like, it's just like your lizard brain, like some primal fear. It's more of a like, it has you get this, and every time you think you can do a sigh of relief, you remember like, oh, well, no one's good here. And like, I know I'm sure we'll get into more of it, but like, no, like it's like the bleakest, depressingest thing ever. And I love it. I love it so much.
But I love bleak and depressing. So it's weird that I will hear Dave. I just wanted to just say, because I just wanted to echo, like I'm all about a depressing ending or a bleak outlook or even a whole depressing, fucked up movie or book, or those are the ones that get me. Like the ones that were like really gut you in some way emotionally. I just think this doesn't do that. That's all.
I was thinking about that, and I think part of it is I think part of it is the the language barrier with some of it. I think
maybe,
and then also I think the other part of it, like and like there was things I caught this time that I didn't catch this time because my knowledge of lore has grown since those days. But like I've leveled up. But like I think there like there's some things in here that like if you don't know about what she is, that kind of like it escapes kind of, or like it like maybe it escapes not right, but like it can be kind of hard to grasp like what the full weight of the situation is. Or what's happening, but like it's I don't know, like I love it. I felt like I was looking, I was like, man, maybe I should buy the steelbook now because I have the DVD, but I'm like, man, I should buy a steelbook because I love this movie.
Need to support it.
I do. I love it so much. It's so good.
So for me, this is not one that I knew anything about until like the early 20 teens. But it was recommended to me from a horror friend that's still a good friend. After I mentioned to them that I was really enjoying the Stieg Larsson books. He's the one who wrote The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, all of that series of books. And then I saw that movie, and I was kind of mesmerized by the look and pacing of that movie. And they said, you really need to check out this movie that just came out. I don't want to ruin it. So they like sent me in, pun intended, completely cold. They didn't tell me what the creature was or what the plot was. They just said, just go get it and watch it. What I realized through that, and I've affirmed it through the years, and we talked about this some with Troll Hunter and with Dead Snow. I like Scandinavian filmmaking. I just really something about it really resonates with me. They are generally very slow burns. And the term that Eli used, I think, is the one that I have. It is the one I have in my notes. The way they tell stories is so bleak. Like there is no optimism in Scandinavian filmmaking. They're not even realists. Like they're totally stone black, bleak. stories. Like there are no heroes. There's nobody in the world that's trying to do right or concerned with that. And I think that plays a huge role in this movie. Like you had mentioned the mom and the dad. They're not bad people, but they're not good people. They're just people. And that's what kind of captures my attention about a lot of the Scandinavian films is they're just humans, and humans do some really effed up stuff to each other when they don't care or when they're not engaged in some way. And that's because I'm carrying all the American optimism. If you talk to anybody around the world, especially in Europe, about Americans, they think we're goofy because of how optimistic we are. They like, y'all have been sniffing the pain or something. Just our attitude towards life and the quote unquote doing better or patriotism, all that stuff that Americans have that generally other countries don't resonate with. But our optimism is something that has colored our storytelling. And watching Scandinavian films made me realize how different it feels to be in somebody else's culture telling a story that is semi-familiar to me. And vampire stories are very familiar to us, but this is not a vampire. And Eli and I were talking before we started recording. This is not a vampire in the classic Bram Stoker Western kind of mentality. It's something else. But I really love this movie. And I totally get it that it's not. I'm not surprised at all that it's not for some of y'all, that it's not your kind of movie. But this for Dave is top 10 horror, and
wow,
no air quotes. This is a horror movie, and I'll defend that to my dying breath. Does it have bloods and guts and buckets of gore and all that? No, but it's a different kind. It's the story, it's the atmosphere, it's the human kind of terror, horror of humanity dealing with itself that I think puts it there. I think it's dark, it's emotional, but it's also sweet at times, which is what kind of makes the balance. If it was dark and bleak all the way through the movie, it would run over the top of you. You'd kind of go numb by halfway through the movie, but it has these little sweet moments. I think it's so well balanced. Of when he and his mom are brushing their teeth and kind of dancing around. It's just those moments catch you off guard because everything else is so black. It's so hopeless. Ellie is a really compelling vampire character to me. But I do think it has a lot to do more with how she interacts with Oscar. It's not that she's an over the top vampire. Like in one I mentioned earlier, that's one of my other favorites is Near Dark, and how Bill Paxton plays his vampire, and that is a totally different kind of thing. But her dread and her terror is in how she manipulates this kid. And like she's a parasite. And if you really boil down what a vampire is just a parasite. That's what it is. It's a codependent parasite is what a vampire is. And that's what she is. And she's totally manipulating this future serial killer, which we're going to talk more about, because I think the older guy who was her, I'm sure she found when he was young too, he was on the same track of he was going to be a messed up, screwed up human being, that she saw the opportunity to use that messed up gift, quote unquote, that person has to get fed. And she's doing the same thing with Oscar. So, but I think in this last watch, because I was worried, it's been several years since I watched it, and is it aging well? I still love this movie. As soon as it came on and you see the snow falling and everything is so bitter cold. Like you can literally see the refraction of the ice crystals on the trees. Like they're glittering literally. And you all know how cold it has to be to make things not melt at all to where you literally have these crystals on everything. But when I was watching it this last time, what I realized is why I like Lina Leandersson, who is playing Ellie in this so much, is because she plays the old child trope better than I think anybody I've ever seen. In Interview with a Vampire, you have the old child, but the way she plays it, the way her limbs hang on her frame, and the way she moves, and the way she looks at people is so haunting. it's because she looks old in the way she's interacting and then the way she carries herself. And even when she attacks the guy, the way she just kind of sits on him, it's all very rote. It's you look at her just kind of slouched on him after butchering him, and she's just sitting on his back totally casually, like this is the 1,000th time that she's done this. And to do that as like a 12-year-old kid is pretty impressive to me. I just have a couple more things and then we can get into it. I do think that the sound effects are used sparingly in this, and that's what improves the effect they actually have to the audience. I mean, there are very few effects in this, but when they're done, I think they're done pretty pitch perfectly in the way they're done. And the biggest thing that surprised me in this last one, because I was listening at home and had the sound turned up, the sound design for this movie is like another character. Like all of her little mouth sounds when she's eating, or even when she's struggling not to attack him, or she's hungry and you hear her stomach growling, all that stuff is kind of cranked up to 11. It's not even realistic, but it's like she's not a person. It's when you hear all these sounds that she's making. And again, I just think Sweden in the dead of winter is such a great backdrop for this kind of story because it's so oppressive and it's so cold and it's so hopeless. And I think that's a perfect backdrop to tell a story like that. That's all I've got.
Here. Yeah,
go ahead.
I would say I think the other thing too, because you were talking about her, the old child, but I think the other thing too as well is like, it's hinted at very heavily that she's fun fact for you, Sweden is one of the few places on Earth that doesn't believe in one type of vampire. They think that there's multiple breeds of vampires. And in this one, she's what's called a strigoi, which is like the worst of the worst, because they basically just eventually over time turn into like giant like maggots with a tongue, and they just eat everything. Like they basically just their just whole purpose is just to eat. They don't really give 3 flying monkey farts. And like that, a lot of that too is like that, like where like her limbs like dropped and like the noises, like even like the elongation at points of her mouth when she's like feeding and she looks up. Like I think they did a really good job of putting that in there. And like I think it's jarring because I think that's what gets a little jarring and weird for some people that's not from there. Like the whole thing with her genitals. I know I've heard a lot of people like, well, I don't understand that. And it's like, oh, well, that's strigoi. Like one of their side, they lose their genitals. Like I don't understand why that's in the lore. Really doesn't make sense. They don't ever explain it, but that's like one of their defining markers is like as soon as they turn, they lose their genitals. Like they fall. If it's a guy, they just fall off. And if it's a girl, they just kind of like close up. Yeah. Like it's just.
But in this, it looks, and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, wasn't paying super detail. I was trying, and I've seen it before. But in this, because it's such a quick shot and his reaction, whatever, in this, it looks more like she was like mutilate, like it was done to her. I don't know if that's the impression they're trying to give, but it looks like.
No, if you
whether it's like castration or something like that, it looks like she.
No, like if you follow the lore, like for the men, it just falls off. Like it doesn't. Like they'd have a gaping hole. So like they have to like. So they have to do something. If you don't set it up, then you have like a front hole.
Thing is, this movie does not explain that to us in any way, shape, or form.
But then again, I don't know if it was necessarily made for. Like that, that's something to their their like lore legend area. Where like if you look at most countries, like and now like in the US, obviously with summer filmmaking, we've had like kind of other versions, but like a lot of countries, including the US, it's like Dracula. Like it's
of course
whatever. You go to some places, it is like the feral thing. Like if you go down south, like chupacabras, basically like because like they're also vampire creatures. Like when you go like south border and like, but like the strigoi is like weird because it's only in certain areas. Yeah, and like.
Is that left out of the American remake? I feel like it is.
It is
because it's not.
They kind of like can't like that American remake. Like don't even get me started on that.
But then the American remake would make no sense in that perspective because like it's not the same thing. Yeah. Like so when we see it, we think it's like castration or mutilation or something's happened to her.
Because we have one kind of vampire. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. We see something like that, and we're just going to take that as like.
I think too, when they did that American remake, I think they kind of missed a lot of the point of that movie.
Yeah, probably.
And
they do with all remakes.
Right. And like, I feel like they cherry pick stuff, which, because I know a lot of people, like even Mary's complained, like, she's like, well, I mean, she's not really a vampire. Like, what is she? Like, she's like drinks blood. I'm like, well, like she is, but like, they just didn't. Like, I'll tell you, like the closest, like an American version got of the Strigoi was The Strain.
Okay, yeah,
the
I've seen
books,
it and read it. Yeah, I read
and
it,
like that they were about the Strigoi, like, and then like they did a TV show or whatever, which,
well, she's not super far off from what we understand, though. She needs to be invited in, hence the title, whatever.
Right.
But like, in a way, I mean, she needs to be invited in. The sunlight, we get the staples of vampire even here. Like, we get the staples of even American-sized vampires. Like, that's how you know what she is. I mean,
but like the cats,
blood, the sun. The being invited in, these are all things we all know as standardized vampire.
Right. And like the other thing, I know like a lot of people I've watched with Pat, like, well, why did all the cats attack? It's like,
because she's evil.
Well, yeah, but like it's kind of Strigoi, because another area that's common in is like Jewish lore. And so like when they were like cats, they think what that came from is like in their lore was like a lot of them, you know, when they were in Egypt, whatever, cats were considered like they had abilities, and a lot of times cats would fight and detect evil. That like that's where that kind of came from. And like that's what's kind of weird about like all this kind of stuff converged in Sweden. Like all like so they have all these vampire tropes. Like their vampire stuff is like built out like weirdly like well developed, and like they're like, listen, there's like 12 breeds of vampire people, and like, but
even back to what Dave asked me in the beginning, and just again going into layman's, even Americanized vampire, like we all know in any movie ever, especially horror, if an animal reacts, it's because something's bad. So like it could be a dog growling in the corner, it could be a cat hissing, it could be whatever. It's because something's not right with this person.
Unless the animal's bad.
It can mean many
unless the animal's bad. Like Cujo.
Like, or a pet cemetery or something. But
well, and I think in a lot of cultures, and I think in a lot of Scandinavian cultures too, there is the belief that certain animals like cats are transitional beings, meaning they are as aware of the spiritual world as they are the ephemeral world or the realistic world, so that they are aware of things. They have different senses than we do. Which I think, what was it? I think the movie Constantine even referenced that.
Because animals are just better than we are. Sorry,
yeah, they are.
They're just better. There was something Eli said also that had a point that it'll come back to me though. I can't remember what it was when you.
How smart I am.
But it was not just that. It was something. It was something else.
But like, so like, I think that like, but it was like, to your point though, Dave, like, I think that was all, like, she did a really good job, because you're right. I think she was like showing that, like, it was to show her age, but I think she also understood like, well, this is what you are. And so, because like as they grow, like they don't really like they're like, you get pictures of like old Strigoi, they kind of look like a giant maggot with arm flaps that they don't really use. Like everything, like their mouth basically comes an appendage, and they're just like eating everything in sight, animals, people, like other vampires. Like that was like that's the other crazy thing, which like which great to Del Toro for bringing a lot, or not Del Toro, Del Toro for bringing a lot of that into The Strain. But like they eat other vampires, like they don't care, like they eat everything.
They just eat. Yeah.
And so like I thought like that like I think like once you look at that perspective as well, like she like kind of like took all that and she did a really good job. Unlike Oscar, need a little help.
Fucking Oscar.
I hated Oscar's life for Oscar. And unfortunately, and I didn't. Everybody's been bullied, and I've been bullied too. But we all know the kid that was like, and we talked a little bit about this with Sleepaway Camp. Like, you look at Oscar and you say, you're going to have a hard life. Like, you've got too much against you. And I love that the movie took the time to set aside for us to see kind of why Oscar's Oscar, like to show us his kind of family situation. Like there's a lot going on that's against him. He's got nowhere. He's literally a lost soul, which is the beginnings of so many serial killer stories. But even in the beginning of this, you get a sense that this is not a good kid. He is not in a healthy place, and it's not going to end well for him or for those around him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Ellie kind of attracted to that. Like that's what she's literally attracted to, is that kind of human being. That
well,
kind
of course,
tragedy.
she needs that type of human. She needs that type of human being in her life, especially since she looks like a 12-year-old girl.
Right.
And I think what this movie does a good job too is it shows how not only has he become this, but here's all the people that's failed him, which is even sadder because like it brings you moments where it's like, oh, someone's starting to pay attention that could help them. And then they don't. Like, you know, his dad, like, oh, he's hanging out with his dad more, like things are normal. Oh, his dad decided to drink with his weirdo buddy instead of like, and then he just left and no one knew. He literally left, hitchhiked back to his mother's house. Like they didn't even know. Or like that one teacher who's like, oh, I'll toughen you up, whatever, but like doesn't really ever pay attention when these boys are picking on him. And then like sees like, oh, he has a weapon and he's surrounded by 3 other boys. And then he's like, oh, I'm gonna go check on these other kids who I told to go pee behind a tree. And like it's weird because like they even like, oh, but he found the dead body, but like doesn't matter. Like there was a present issue, and like they like that up close shot of him like staring, like waiting to see what happened. Like you can almost see him think like, well, should I intervene, or like he needs to toughen up. So like it's crazy too. Like not only is Oscar not good, but it shows you whose fault it is why he turned out the way he did. It's got like there's even subtle ones. I thought it's really good.
Yeah.
Such good.
And you just hit on something that I want to kind of circle back on because it is in my notes. But what is the father and the drinking buddy? Why are we going to that? Because I didn't know, was this guy the dad's new partner, or was it just a guy who came over and was a bad influence on the dad?
Yeah,
who obviously is an alcoholic.
I was having the same, or was his dad like an ex-alcoholic and now we're reverting back to alcohol? I was trying to figure, and again, I'm so sorry, but like when you're reading and you miss some things, you can only rewind so much. And I was like, did I miss a key part about his dad?
Because I don't think so, like, or we both did. Yeah,
but we both did, because I was trying to figure out why this scene, besides maybe a little neglect, because like earlier he's having so much fun with his dad, and then whatever. So it's not that like it's not that he has a bad relationship. At
it
least
was
on the outset.
One healthy relationship. It looked like he had.
It seemed like it. And then all of a sudden this guy comes over and I'm just like, oh, is he like the mafia or something? What is going on in this little dynamic? I could not. And the alcohol, they kept looking at the alcohol. So I was just like, oh shit, is he not supposed to be drinking? And like now he's going back. He's off the wagon, on the wagon, whatever. The Seinfeld joke, and I can't. Like
I think they I think they leave cues, and like you're kind of supposed to fill in the blanks, because I think they do the same thing with the mom. They don't exactly tell you why she's bad. Like you see bits and pieces of it, and like I think they leave up to you, because like there's the thing with the drinking, which like, okay, well his dad must be an alcoholic or whatever. But then I think there's even kind of like slight cues that maybe like this guy's been around before. And he's maybe been inappropriate with Oscar or something, because like some of the looks he gives and like the way he kind of talks to him, and like if you notice, like when he says stuff or talks to him, it's when his dad's not looking, and then like
it's
there's a couple, right?
Yeah, it was weird, and I noticed that also, but
and so like
maybe he abused him. I could not figure
and like there's even like a couple shots where like when the dad's getting the drinks, like he kind of looks at them, and you can just see like a weary look at his face, like he might suspect something, but like I almost think they purposely did it so like you're forced to kind of fill the blanks. It's got to be scarier what's in your mind than what they show you potentially.
Yeah,
so
and
like,
that's a Scandinavian filmmaking thing,
right? Because
they do not spoon feed their audiences,
right? Because like with the mom, like it almost that she may be some form of abusive, or that be verbally or even physically points to, like there's things where like he didn't really do anything, but like as soon as like he's left alone all night because she works, and then 9 times out of 10 when she's in the house with him, she's screaming at him, even if it's not something he did. Like so like it's,
if nothing else, it's clear that she sees him as a burden, not a son.
Right.
Like
exactly.
He is the problem. Right.
But then you're filling in like, well, how bad is she, or what else is going on based off like the reactions of what you see. Like it's I thought that was really nicely done as well when it comes to the parents.
Yeah.
The problem is, for me, I don't care enough. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, no, I don't care. I understand everything they're by saying. And it's funny we bring up that other guy, because like Like literally, I also read it as like maybe predatory. Like even though they don't say it outright in any way, shape, or form, but it's an uncomfortable, obvious.
You get a bad
situation.
vibe about it.
And you get a bad vibe from him. But counter to that is like, I didn't give a fuck. Like I was just kind of like, I don't care about Oscar. I don't care about anybody in this movie. And that's just my lack of like, they don't give me enough for me to give two shits about anybody. And I know to your point that no one's really a good or whatever, but like to that, there's just nobody I'm even invested in to care about where we're going with this, good or bad, or
yeah, there's not an entry point for the ride.
For me to like get in there and be like, okay, like who am I? Whether it ends poorly, well, whatever, like I'm just have it end.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
Well, and I also don't know. Part of me, and I know John did, so I don't want to take away from that either. But like, part of me wishes I saw it for the first time because, like, also. Not that there's like a ton of surprises, but also I already knew everything going in. So it's
right.
so hard sometimes to watch some of these movies like it's one thing when we do like, and I'm not trying to bring up like a Piranha, which we know I love and it's fun and it's goofy and I'll watch it 1,000 times. But some of these movies you want that first impact again. And like, since I can't remember how I felt in 2008 or 2009 or whatever, when I watched it, it's hard to watch it again because I still know everything. So nothing's a surprise to me. So I can't duplicate how I might have felt the first time watching this. And maybe the first time I watched this, I did end and say, wow, you know, like it brought up this or it made me feel this. But this time I'm just like, well, I know what it is. I know where we're going. I know what's happening. I know what she, him, the whole deal is. And I just don't fucking care.
Well, and to a point, as I was listening to everybody kind of give their reactions to it, it did trigger in my mind. There are a lot of movies that we review for the podcast that are easy to multitask with and to do background watches.
Yeah.
This is not one of those movies, at least in my opinion. This is one of those that literally when I had set time aside the other night just to watch this movie, had every light in my den off, had 2 blankets on top of me because I knew I was going to feel cold the entire time watching this movie. But this was something that I really needed to kind of give my attention to. And I totally understand the reason I did that is because this matters to me. But I do think it would be hard to get a sense for what the director and the actors were trying to do for this movie, especially as a foreign language movie, as a background thing. I think it would make it really hard.
And I didn't do background intentionally. Like I said, I sat down to watch it 2 nights ago, like after work, not while I was working, not while I was doing anything. I sat down after dinner, like whatever, by myself on the couch and watched it. But I started to wander so many times that I was like, go to your phone or whatever. And then I'm like, fuck, I wasn't paying attention. And again, because you have to read, and I'm not saying that as a knock, I watch far, but it's just like, you don't even pick up on some of it, like, because maybe you're looking at your phone, but you heard it. I don't hear anything because I have no fucking clue what they're saying. So like, I'm just like,
so much of the acting is small gesture acting. You can miss so much.
I had to just keep being like, oh shit, and going back. But yeah, I think, there are a few that we do, and I feel like sometimes I mention them, but there are a few that we do that I think 2 things. I'd have more to say, and I might feel differently if it was my first. The problem with some of those is that I've already seen them, and that takes away from any kind of initial, and I can't remember. I have such a poor memory, and that's on me. But like,
well, you've also consumed a shit ton of horror.
that too. But I wish I knew when my sister and I were done with this movie. We watched it together by ourselves. Like, and I wish and we're both horror fans. You guys know that about my sister and me, whatever. And like, I wish I remember and maybe she'll tell me, I'll ask her, but like, I wish I remember when we turned it off, what we said to each other. Cause I'm sure we had a conversation. We are horror fans and like, we turned it off and I don't know where we went from there. Right. So I wish I did. From now on, I will keep notes of every single horror movie I watch.
You'll have a shorthand for all.
In case we do it.
She's gonna have one of those. Was a stenographer at a courthouse with those weird typing machines?
Yeah, just my shorthand. Like,
she's gonna.
To be fair, I do that for work sometimes, so like I can do it in my free time.
Just do voice memos. That way you don't have to worry about recording.
I don't want to hear myself. I already have a hard time listening to this.
Well, just send it to Dave. I don't listen to this. I don't want to hear
all my notes.
Yeah.
I have to record after every movie I watch and then send to Dave.
What is this?
Listen to my notes. Please transcribe.
Like just in a text message. I'm just going to send Dave like a whole.
I mean, you could do the transcription. That's pretty good on the iPhone.
So we've kind of hinted around it, and obviously we're of 2 camps here, which is like my favorite place for us to be. We talked about this at the year ender. I like these kind of conversations where we can kind of flesh some of this stuff out, where some of us, this movie is going to disappear into the oblivion after this conversation, never to be spoken of again. And for some of us, this movie matters. Like it genuinely matters to us for the genre and for the community. All of that to say, what is each of yours favorite kind of vampire story? Like what is, I mean, and this is not, and I'm not diminishing those, but I'm not talking about what we do in the shadows and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
but those are my
legitimate horror vampire story. What is your favorite kind?
You know, honestly, it'd be like this. Because I think the other thing too, like a lot of people, like when they watch Dracula, you know, they're like, oh, whatever, but he loved Nina. We're like, it really wasn't a love for Nina. It was almost a possession. Right. Like he wanted to take, like, that was his, like it was his possession. It was the influence, like that was just another thing to feed on. Maybe not physically, but vampires are empty vessels. They're constantly going to take and consume.
It was a dominion thing,
right? And like, whereas like, I think like where a lot of vampire movies you see now, Twilight, and like a lot of like
Eli's favorite.
Even like you know, other types of vampire movies, like I don't know, name any of them, like they kind of got away from that, like that's really not always a thing anymore, whereas like this like brought that old school back. Like, well, no, these are like, there's no ulterior motives, this isn't True Blood where they're like trying to be politicians or whatever, like this isn't Underworld where they're fighting the Great Lycan War for the soul of London or whatever. Like like her whole purpose is to consume in one form or the other, and every decision, action, manipulation she does is for some form of consumption. And like what's really interesting about this is like with this movie is though they do like, everybody is like basically there's all these predators fighting over Oscar in some form or the other. And so like they're all kind of vampires, and like, which is kind of in a sense, so like it's this type where like they a vampire is what it is, and like they don't try to like candy coat it or like, you know, put sprinkles of sparkle on it, or not sparkle, glitter, like they borrow glitter from Jamie's house.
You bet not sprinkles, which is the first thing.
Yeah, that's not
which I wish they had sprinkles on them. That might be. I feel like I think I said this. I'm pretty sure I said this during 30 Days of Night, which I'm going to come back to in 1 second, that vampires are not my favorite at all. Right. Like just as far as horror or creature, they're not. Like I always found them kind of in the like, not lore. I'm just going to use them like the old horror romanticized. They've never been my kind of thing. Like they just kind of like boring to me. And like, so the types that I can watch. Let's put Ellie. Is it Ellie? How do you say her name again? Ellie. Yeah. So we could even put Ellie in it, maybe in a different context, because the movie I found dull. But like that, the all-consuming. That I'm going to go with 30 Days of Night, even because we were in this conversation. I like that movie too. Right. Like I like those. And I think that's where we had this conversation, that I like those vampires. Yeah, they're kind of like certain zombies we get in movies too. I don't care. Give me like the mindless, all-consuming, just carnage and mayhem monster. Yes. I don't want the romanticized, spewing like poetry and like, I don't know, dressed in velvet kind of. I want. And we're taking what we do in the shadows out because that is my favorite representation of vampires, but they're just vampires. They are like the classic kind of like, but
they are the trope. Yeah.
They are the trope. They're everything tropey about vampires. Right. So I'm going to go with like, and we can put Ellie in it because I get that that's what she is. Just take her out of this movie maybe and put her elsewhere for me. And then I'm okay. But I'm going to go with
this kind is the kind that you would.
Yeah. Cause she is, she's got no motive besides to eat. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. She is the only thing that matters in her world.
And if you don't do it for her, she's going to do it herself.
Right.
Just because that's, what she kind of makes clear, right? At one point. Right. Like, so. Yeah.
Well, they even did a great job. Like she's in that apartment and he's like, there's Bear. You guys are poor. She's like, I have all the money. I could buy a nuclear reactor with this pig. She's like,
Mhm.
you need money? I'll give you money. Like whatever
Why?
you.
Does she need someone else to do it for her?
Well, like you figure like she can't travel in the daylight, right? And she's
I
also
get that part,
trying.
but why can't she just do it at night?
Well, she's also trying to stay hidden and not bring attention to herself because she knows like it's not as it's her feeding will not be as routine and will not be as fulfilling if she's forced to always be moving and hunting. Whereas if she can go someplace and basically find some guy to go out every night, drain blood into her bucket, and then every night she knows there's no like because like it's not like the thrill of the hunt doesn't matter. It's just the consumption.
No, just eating. Yeah.
Right.
No, I get that.
She's gonna get more and for less work by like
all right, by
hiding somewhere.
Else.
And it's gonna be more like it's gonna be an everyday almost thing. And like you can tell being like she's yelled at old guy, she's like, I'm hungry. Like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
One
she's
purpose
just
you're
using them for one purpose and
Right.
one purpose only for as long as they'll do it, which presumably this guy's been doing it since almost as long as Oscar is going to be doing it. So like,
right. But like it's basically like it's less work for her and it's going to be more constant by this way, especially as like because I think that's too like because like I think the time frame they kind of like made this look like is like if you figured this was like modern times, that's going to be a lot harder. Like she's not going to be able to leave at all because like cameras everywhere, whatever, and like you could see like she's old enough where she's starting to realize like, well, this is the way this has to be done.
Yeah.
And like I need to, like she's adapting so that she is still getting what she needs.
Mm-hmm. John, what about you? Favorite kind of vampire?
It's funny, Jamie doesn't like the velvet enshrined vampires. I usually don't either, but Gary Oldman's Dracula, always been a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. And Interview with the Vampire is like a rock solid classic for me. I do really love that movie. But I'm also a big 30 Days a Night, and I got a soft spot for the underworld vampires. I don't know why. They're just kind of goofy. Like they do whatever. They got guns. I mean, sure, why not?
The punk band vampires.
Yeah. The goth girl vampire. The Hot Topic vampire.
I was just in Hot Topic the other day.
I saw.
Eli, what about you?
Yeah, I already answered this. Like Dracula, like that.
Oh yeah, the classic romantic vampire. Yeah.
Hey, Dave.
The Christopher.
Well, not even romantic. I would say because like I think that it's a manipulation. He's still manipulating, but I think that people romanticized it. And I think that's where like Dracula is interesting because like my thing with 30 Days a Night, like they're still like mindless consuming machines, but like they're more like werewolves. Whereas like the things about like if you looked at like the Dracula type of vampire or the vampire breed or whatever, like their biggest asset was their ability to manipulate and to trick people. Mm-hmm. They weren't going out to do a lot of work to hunt. Like they were gonna convince you to let them do it with as little work as possible.
Right.
What about you, Dave? What's your favorite?
Well, this one, I mean, big shocker, but this kind of vampire is my favorite kind of vampire. The movies like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, this movie, Thirst, even Near Dark. I mean, but these kind of solitary, manipulative, almost demonic creatures that are only human on the outside. Like there's genuinely, there's nothing human about Ellie. I mean, that's what we learned through this movie. She's got no point of reference to the human race anymore. The human race is a feeding ground to her. And I don't know that, and it obviously isn't told, so I get to fill in all those gaps myself. I don't know that she ever was human. I mean, I don't know how Strigoi work. I know that you can be turned because somebody was in this movie, but I love that concept of somebody who feeds on the misery of the human race. Like literally, and I just referenced A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. She does the same thing. She like finds the people on the fringe, like the people that are already socially isolated in some way. But she, the opposite of Ellie, she does it with the dominant predatory people out there trying to attack young women and that kind of thing. So it's a opposite end of the same spectrum kind of thing. But I love these stories because I I love Bram Stoker's Dracula, the book. I love that. And I love Francis Ford Coppola's vision of that book. I thought he did a good job with what you can do with a book like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I guess, and I can't remember when we talked about this, but I think Jamie made the point, and I agree completely, that there was a stretch there where you got so fatigued on that kind of vampire that I don't want to see him anymore. I haven't watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola movie, in over a decade. But to your point, one of Gary Oldman's best performances ever. But if I have to watch Winona Ryder as Mina again and Keanu Reeves, it's just not going to work out.
Dracula, why are you keeping me in your castle?
I'm from London.
Yeah, it's not great.
As you can
great.
See, yeah.
I like Gary Oldman, that one. I don't like that movie. Yeah. I prefer like old school, the old ones. I did not like that movie because like none of them
tragic romantic vampire. Nah, give me Nosferatu. He is the template that I want to follow. Very excited for what Eggers is going to do.
Yeah,
with that, so.
Yeah, same here.
So, like, if we are going what we do in the shadows, the Peter of what we do.
Peter.
Basically.
Wiki.
Sorry, we won't. But that movie is so fucking.
We're having flat meeting.
Or like, if you watch the TV show, The Count, like that suit, like
Doug Jones, Doug Jones. Yeah, Doug Jones's character, like, yeah.
Yeah, the old vampire.
Mm-hmm. But Doug Jones actually, once he's not burnt, shows up in his like full garment of like, right. But he's the. Oh God, never mind. We're not talking. Stop me now because we could we'll just go on the show and the movie. I don't care.
So I have my opinions, but I want to hear from y'all for those. And I know this was John's first watch of this. He may not have ever seen the Hollywood version. Let me in.
No.
But for those that have seen both, what are your opinions about both of those movies, and why did the Hollywood one come out to be so different from this original source material?
Well, I think I was excited for the American version when it came out. I'll be honest though, I think that the problem with the story is like, they tried to use the same story, but then they tried to Americanize it. So like they try to take out a lot of the bleakness and steer more into like they might actually love each other, blah 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 blah, which it wasn't. And like two, when they took out the bleakness, they took out a lot of the darkness of the story, but
the
like
weight of it,
and like the heavy, like because like I would even say this is one of those movies where like when you think you're about to have a sigh of relief, it turns more into like you're like, ooh no, here we go again. Like it's, and like they kind of got rid of that, and like so then like there was this weird thing where like they're like it's in this dark area and whatever, but like it just you just don't feel like you're in the dark the whole time, and like. I didn't like. I mean, I thought Oscar was a little rough. Like Oscar's like he's a little rough in this. Some of his like facial expressions, like he's trying to do, like, and then too, like when he's swimming, I don't know why. I've never met somebody who swims their mouth fully wide open
the whole time.
In this one, you mean, right?
Yeah. In this
it makes me. It's cringy. It makes me really uncomfortable the way he swims. Like he's dancing with his mouth open.
Yeah.
Like
he goes like hippopotamus the whole time.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Right, but like it's like I didn't like the boy in the American version. I used to like, or there's like some stuff I like that Chloe Moretz in quite a bit. I think she did the best with what they were trying to do with like the American version, but like she didn't carry any of the weight, or like it felt like she had a conscience, and like, which is like a big part of this movie, and why the original story is told so well is like, because her eyes, like she smiles at him with her mouth and she says stuff, but like when you look at her
she's
eyes,
dead. Yeah,
her eyes are always wide, unblinking, and like there is nothing except for the only like, and like they make a point of like the only time you see like a change in her eyes is one when like the transition to the dark and she goes from a predator to like basically her human mask when the lights come on, or when she's feeding and they're starting to glow. Like that's the only, other than that, like she has the same deadpan stare from like the nose up the whole movie.
Yeah.
And like they didn't really do that with like they try to give her more like a conscience or something, or like where like they didn't really catch that point with the Americanizers. Like it's a shame. Like it fell super flat in my
Chloe
opinion.
Grace Moretz too, like especially then was to me for this movie too cute. You know what I'm trying to say? Like everything you're saying.
Oh,
too cute. She's got that round face. She's got like those eyes. She has like blonde-ish hair. Like, and I don't mean that's the epitome of, but like that's also not what you put if you want like a little bit of menacing. Like you just you don't. You get the girl in this version in the original.
Well,
like
they
first of all,
somebody...
I looked up the boy and he looks almost exactly like Oscar, just brunette and like I don't know. They look too much. It's like looks like the American Oscar. I don't know.
It's not great, but no, you're 100% right because like in this version, like. They picked somebody who was pretty androgynous. Like, there are points which go either way. We're like, to your point, Chloe Grace Moretz, like, is not.
She's cute. She's very cute. She's got long blondish hair. She's got big eyes, round face. She's like, she's like what people describe. She's like doll faced, if you will. Chloe Grace, especially when she was younger. I don't know how she's aging. Like if it's like, but she's doll faced, which is not an insult, and it's why she got so many parts as a child. But it's not the right role for someone.
No, 100%. Because, like, to your point, like when she smiles in like the Americanized version, like she's smiling. Where like in the Swedish version, like she smiles a couple times, but like it almost doesn't look natural. You're like my eyes are like, well, that's a smile, but like the back of my head's going, something not right here.
Yeah,
woo woo woo. Like you know what I mean? Like it's like this weird like fake smile. There's a lot of like foreign horror films I really enjoy that. Like the issue, like, and don't get me wrong, like America makes some really great, like there's some American directors make some really great horrors, but like a lot of like it seems like a lot of times when we remake something from overseas, we just miss either we're too concerned with like Americanizing it or like we just miss the actual point
like
of what the movie's about.
Holy shit, Wreck and Quarantine. Holy shit. Those 100%. Are two totally different 100%. And they're the same movie. It's so weird. Because I assume this is, so I know I brought it up numerous times here, but this is Dave's question. I don't remember if I saw the remake. And looking at pictures, I don't think I did. But from what I had heard, it's almost shot for shot. But how come with these shot for shot remakes, and let's even put fucking Psycho in there, which is just a remake of an American movie. But like, why are they so bad when they're even shot? Like Wreck was Quarantine was kind of shot for Wreck and it blows. And I assume that this one also is kind of shot for shot, but not nearly as good as the original. And that's someone who's like doesn't even thoroughly enjoy the original. But I'm just saying, like it's. And like, again, let's take Psycho, which is a fucking shot for shot remake of the original. Why do we even have to do that? I don't really know. But they do that a lot. And so again, not nearly as good. And that's not someone saying like the original is so near and dear. It's like, why are we even doing this with these movies when they're not going to hold up? Yeah. Like if people are that aggravated, like reading subtitles or trying to consume something because it's foreign, like, or they can't get their hands, I don't know, release it here with dubbing. I don't like that, but I'm just saying like, if Americans are just can't fucking read or whatever the situation is, like release it here with dubbing or something and like stop shot for shot and remaking it and then still not doing it justice. Because
it's almost like this. Maybe it's the optimism thing that I talked about earlier, or it's just flat out arrogance. But we feel like if something was a good story in Sweden, it would be a great story if we told it, right? We're the professionals.
Or like,
and a good example of that is Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I mean, that original compared to the James Bond version. I mean, they're totally different movies. Right?
Yeah.
And they're, to your point, it's the exact same script. It's almost the same storyboarding, but the movies are completely different. Like first one horrified me.
I mean, I'll be honest. I think a lot of it is like, I think it's just like, I mean, American films is kind of like the base, like that's like the most popular thing around the world. Like it's not just our country, like that is like a thing. And I think that a lot of times, like when these countries make films, like they a lot of times don't have the same effects budget, or like they're not going to have the same type of effects, or like they don't have as many well-known actors. Like if they find local actors, like it's like a lot. I think it's like that, where like a lot of times with like the American version, they're like, well, hey, who's big right now? Chloe Grace Moretz was that Kick-Ass movie. Let's make her the vampire. And they're like, well, this ain't phone right. Fuck it. We'll just put a couple extra effects in. It'll look great. And they're like, okay. Because like the other one, I'm telling you that like I like Train to Busan.
I was about to bring up Train to
they're
Busan. Are we
doing
still
American
fucking doing
version.
it? Are we still doing
and
it?
like
Oh my
I
God.
already know it's going to be like Resident Evil. Like I just know
I
it.
really like Train to Busan. Like
Yeah,
I
and
really like it. And
right,
like,
and like they're
And the
going to
heart
miss
of that movie is the whole movie.
right.
yeah,
right.
that one I can get behind too. Like I fucking like that.
Right. Like I think a lot of times like with these other countries, these movies are explicitly telling a story. And unless they put these remake or reboots or remakes or whatever in the right director's hands, I think a lot of times they miss the soul of the story. Like, and they're just like if you tell them like what this, like they're making Let Me In or whatever the fuck the American version called, they're like, oh, it's just about a kid falls in love with a vampire kid. Got it. Fucking shoot it. But like they miss everything else like the movie's about.
Right. Well, and just as in this conversation, I just had this thought thinking about a movie that just came out. It's like Godzilla versus King Kong and
Godzilla minus one.
Yeah, it's a totally different freaking movie, but it's told from the perspective of the people the culture that actually started that story. And it hits so differently. It doesn't matter that Kong versus Godzilla had $1 million bajillion cajillion dollars to do whatever effects they wanted to at whatever scale they wanted to. The Godzilla minus one is just a better freaking story.
Yeah. Yeah, I get like I'll be honest, I know I complain about this week after week, like I like story, but like I get concerned because like I'm not concerned, but I think you're gonna see a change where I don't think the kind of the US is gonna be like the kind of like gold star appeal for filmmaking.
I don't think we are.
I don't think we are anymore, but I think you're gonna see where like I think a lot of people realize like we're not really doing anything original. We just keep remaking,
we just keep remaking
and
things.
resequeling and like blah blah blah. Whereas like you look at some of these other places, like they're making some like crazy original stuff, and like it's. And
Did y'all see that new horror movie where evil lurks?
Yes.
Mhm.
So
I'm watching it this weekend. I'm watching this weekend.
Okay.
But we just
won't
talked about it,
but
Eli and I.
to the point Eli's making right
Yes.
now, talk about a movie that would not get made here that is
Damien
so
Leone.
incredibly
I don't know.
Well, well, like, but even though like Leone, like if you look like he kind of did the cop out with like his sequel in a certain sense. Like I think a lot of times you get these like American filmmakers who like do pretty solid like their first one, and then they can kind of get in their own way because like he tried to add like a bunch of nonsensical story in Terrifier 2 that like the whole point of the first one was like what was terrifying about it, like you had
Let's
no
get
clue
to the wrecking people. Yeah.
what
Oh yeah,
this
but
thing
he's
is,
what I guess what I'm saying is he
force-
still did it because he wanted to. It's not like
right.
upper like big movie making production got involved and like he's an idiot and like someone should have edited him.
Right. But today's point where evil lurks, like I haven't seen. I'm watching this weekend, but the guy that did that, his first movie was the same way.
Terrified.
Terrified. It made like it's crazy when you watch that. And like I said, I even like I said, you look at Train to Busan. I didn't like Peninsula, but which was a sequel to it. But I think like you can see that was a lot of push. I think from like the American market to do a sequel to that. From what I was reading, and you can kind of see because like. That second one lost all of it. Like, there's not a lot of soul that was like in the first one, and like, but like you look at some of these places that are making these horror movies, like they're crazy good, and then like you look and we're what the most original horror film we had last year was fucking Thanksgiving.
Yeah. It's funny, Dave, that you brought that up though, because Eli and I just talked about him last night and how I said I'm here for whatever that guy does because after Terrified and When Evil Lurks, like they're fucking weird and like
he's a dangerous person. Yeah, he's a dangerous
here for whatever this guy is gonna fucking do. I don't know. It's just
like I don't even like if you look at some of the people who are like dealing with, like even look at Del Toro, he has not done a whole lot. Like it's almost like he kind of like got a read after that Fishman movie. He kind of got a read in the room. He's like, oh, we're only doing remakes and reboots now. No, all right, well, I'm gonna go back.
Fishman movie that like won Best Picture.
I don't know why because it was dumb.
I wasn't a fan, but yeah,
he basically.
I mean, I love Del Toro, but I wasn't a fan.
So do I. But like, he basically, in my eyes, was like, I want to tell a story of Creature from the Black Lagoon, but if it's kind of like Twilight. But I don't think people will let me film a sex scene with the Creature from the Black Lagoon, this lady. So I'm basically going to steal the design of Abe Sapien from Hellboy so that it looks more human so I can get away with having sex with a fish. Or, I'm sorry, the character can have sex with a fish. Well, I think they did. That's just my take.
Sure.
So any other thoughts on this movie?
we went on that.
Oh, this movie?
I would just like to give a thank you to Jamie because like I rewatched it when I was having a bad day and I was like, man, you know what? Like I don't know. And like I was having a rough day. Like I had kind of like a rough weekend and stuff. And then like I was talking to Jamie and like I was like, you know what? I know I wasn't in the right mindset. And then like it was like falling in love all over again. Like I literally like sat there.
You're welcome.
And I was like this. This is how I was watching. I was just like, oh my God, I forgot how great this movie is.
Even though you watched it the day before.
I was not in the right mindset, Jamie. And you're the one that
was a different Eli.
That was a different Eli. And you showed me the way. Like, I feel like I owe you a thank you card.
Happy. Oh, now you owe me a thank you card.
No,
wait, mine was an apology card. You owe me a
like
thank
they're two
you
different types of cards.
Yeah, sorry.
So one of the things that, and I can't remember, I'm sorry if it was John or Jamie, but one of y'all mentioned, excuse me, one of y'all mentioned that this feels like the Rubik's Cube. So it was John talking about what time was this? Well, apparently it is a period piece. It was set in 1982, which makes a lot of sense because there was a lot culturally that was happening in Sweden at the time. But it was also referenced that 1982 was the year that they chose because that's the year that the two top horror movies in the world were The Thing. And what was the other one? It was The Thing and Poltergeist, which this movie, if you look at it, it does have sort of a feel for both of those movies, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, if you put this and if you're old like me and can think back to 1982, it does have that feel of it because, obviously people aren't running around with mobile phones or any of that kind of stuff. It is much more isolated and it's much more low tech, lo-fi in the way everything's shot. And it has that graininess of an 80s type of movie. But I thought that was interesting. That's all I had. I just, since you had mentioned that, I wanted to circle back to that because I do think it matters to what the intention of the film was. I will also say I enjoyed watching this movie so much. And this was because we had talked about this on, I think it was the Nope episode, but the cinematographer for this, Hoyt van Hoytema, and I'm sure I'm butchering that. This was like, he had done a ton of Swedish films leading up to this. This movie like became his resume piece. And if you look at what that guy's done since then, it's like everything he's done. He did Interstellar. He did Inception. Oh, wow. He did Her, that movie with Joaquin Phoenix. But yeah, he's like the premier cinematographer now. And I totally get it because of the way this is lit, the way it's framed, and just the way he's capturing that stuff to the point that was made earlier about everything's very close in on people to get reactions. But then when actual action is happening, you're like 100 yards away. Like when she does the attack under the bridge, you're literally, as the audience, standing so far away that you can't do anything about it. Like you feel hopeless and voyeuristic watching this attack. You know what's going to happen. But he's so brilliant at setting those frames so well. But yeah, Hoyt van Hoytema of Nope, which we all loved, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Favorite movie.
That movie is the
bee's knees is what he was about.
It's not as
one of Eli's favorites.
It's nowhere near as bad as Antlers, but like that is a frustrating movie. And like
I have told quite a few people to listen to our episode though, because you two were the only people I knew who kind of got the movie. So like anytime someone has said to me, I have no fucking clue what I said. Oh, listen to my podcast.
Here's a couple of theories. I don't know if they're right.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, I have nothing to contribute. But my co-hosts definitely have theories on this movie.
Well, like I'll be honest. He teased they're starting the filming of the fourth one.
I saw,
movie,
yep.
And like I really think what would be fun. The only thing I enjoyed about that movie is probably you and I going back and forth on the episode, Dave. Mm-hmm. So I'm convinced when the new one comes out, I will be driving to Tennessee. I would like us to go see it together, and then I would like us to sit somewhere with a drink in each hand
in a Waffle House with a strong coffee,
and just go at it,
and then never speak of it again.
Never talk about it again.
Can I just sit in the corner drinking while you guys do this or something? I don't know.
Sure.
Like,
no, of course.
I'll just be the cameraman filming
petting dogs or something. I don't know.
You got to go until like 2-3 in the morning. So you get the right crowd around you.
You get the right audience.
Because I could, like, if I wish like you and I were the same age, went to college at the same time, because I could see us as those two that you're like, hey, we read a book, or like you should read this book, and then like us just being somewhere directly after, and like just
Let's unpack this bad boy.
and then we're like, all right, cool, let's move on to the next thing.
Next book, please.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we've said our piece about Let the Right One In. There is a Dave's Critter Corner this week. Any guesses what animal that I have looked up and researched this week?
There were
cat?
cats. There was
It's the
that
kitty
poodle.
cats.
Okay, there was that cute. We didn't mention the scene of the poodle just sitting there looking at the body hanging out. That's like my favorite scene in the movie because it's like snow and it's a white poodle, and but it's like standard poodle for those listening. So that's a big thing, not like a little toy poodle. Like, and he's just sitting there, like just looking at the body, and it's just fucking adorable. Like, there's also like Rotties or something later too. I couldn't see them from far away. But there's like black dogs that might be Rotties or mixes.
And we didn't talk about him at all, but Hakan, who is Ellie's current henchman, he is like the worst killer ever.
Oh, he's terrible.
Awful.
But I will say we didn't touch, and like it's the only like actual like visual effect I like is his face when they finally show it. First they show the reflection, so we should like he like burns it with acid, right? Like that's what he does earlier. Like
the top down shot of him falling or jumping out of that was brutal.
Oh,
that's that whole scene is pretty good, and like the reflection of his face first is really good, and then but
I listen, it's not that he was terrible; he was getting too old, and like I think he knew he was getting too old, and then also when she's hanging out with Oscar, he knows like,
oh, he's done.
He's
replaced. He's
like she's getting my replacement. They said like, please don't hang out.
Don't hang out with him.
And it wasn't like and like I think a lot of people treat like, oh, he's just trying to keep her safe. No, he doesn't.
Not at all.
He knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And then that night he's like, well, I'm gonna take this jar of acid with me. People see me.
And he does it so pitifully too. Like when he asked her not to see the boy, it's not like, again, like you said, it's of course not for her because he says it's so pitiful. Like he's just like pleading with her not to see this boy. Like,
and there's no reaction. And like,
she's just like,
one last point I'd like to point out is like, because you guys talked about the face close-ups, but if you look, like they use that a lot to show the true intentions of these predators. Because like, for example, right with Oscar, there's multiple times where he's getting abused, and if you look at his face, he's really not reacting.
Yeah, he's gonna kill somebody.
And like, even when his dad, like the stuff with his dad, like the guy's over, there's no reaction. But like when it comes to Ellie, that's when he's the most reactive. He's like becoming infatuated with her. And it's the same with like her henchman guy. Like the only time his face is not just straight is when he's like talking to her. And there's almost like a sadness to it because he knows like shit's about to go real. But like but if you look at her face, like anytime she like interacts with him, there's nothing.
Right.
Except for the anger, like once the anger where she was talking about like, oh, just think about it. Jamie. Oh, I need 2 thank you cards.
I wish I was in Eli's zone to watch this. I wish I had that same experience. So it's just,
I'm telling you, I watched the shit out of this the first time because when I first watched it, I still remember. In all fairness, I was dating a girl at the time. I didn't have Netflix myself, and I was like, hey, can I throw a little movie on your Netflix? And they're like, oh, what? Like, I don't really know. It's a vampire movie. And I left out the part about Sweden and that it was in another language because where I grew up, they didn't take too kindly to that. Got the Sweden part, but just no one wants to watch a movie with subtitles.
Why am I reading a movie?
Right. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this. And I remember them her brother, I was like, oh, we like vampire movies. Watch. I'm like, no, you're like this one. But we watched it. And I was like, at the end, I'm like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing. And they're all like, God, a weirdo. And they're right.
Fair enough. So all of that to say, the creature that I did choose for this movie is the Persian long hair, which is the cat in the candy store window that flips out.
Oh, it hisses at her. Yeah, in the window. Yeah.
Has the big reaction when she comes through. Origins of the Persian, as it is known commonly, are actually unknown. They know they came from the Persian area, obviously, but they were first imported into Europe from Persia in the early 1600s. Queen Victoria was a huge Persian fan. She had many Persian cats, apparently. It is one of the oldest pedigreed cat breeds. So as far as keeping track of lineages and stuff, the Persians have the best family tree of any other cat breed. They've been recorded for the longest time. The lifespan of about 15 to 18 years. Persians come in different colors, which I didn't know. I thought they were all white, but apparently they come in all different kinds of colors. White is the most common, but you can get Persians in a lot of different colors. They are very lazy cats, apparently. They're perfect lap cats. Like if you want a cat just as a piece of furniture to be with you all the time, a Persian's a great option. The flip side of that is they are known to be unintelligent is the nice way to put it. They're not known to be very intelligent cats. Due to the breed's narrow hips, they have birth small litters compared to other cats of only 2 to 5 kittens in a litter. So before you adopt a Persian long hair, their long hair, which they're known for, does mean that they need constant maintenance. Coat maintenance. They need daily brushing, regular baths, lots of trimming. They're just a high maintenance cat just because of their hair, which is beautiful, and it's part of their what people love about them. But it does mean that they stuff get not to get gross, but stuff gets hung in the hair, and it's just a constant maintenance issue with any long-haired animal, any pet that you have that's long-haired. That's just part and parcel. They're harder to litter train than most other cat breeds, part of that intelligence thing. I didn't know this, but apparently Persians weren't always flat-faced. Like that was bred into them, but the early ones were more standard flat-faced.
Don't get me started on that, because they're of that brachydelic.
Right. Yeah. That's been bred into them. Yeah. That's what people prefer.
So they have fucking breathing problems like other brachycephalus. I can't say the word. I made up the word before, but brachyes.
Well, you made it up.
Short. I know I said it wrong.
Oh,
I
thought you meant like this is just a word I made up on
they're like
I can't remember my own word.
No, but like just call them brachyes, because that's the short. Like it's like. But anyway,
they're flat-faced. Yeah. They are not great in houses. If you're going to adopt them, they're not great in houses with dogs or kids. They're low-key animals, and they don't like a lot of energy in the house. They like things to be chill. So they're not going to be happy. Therefore, you're not going to be happy if they get stressed out. Jamie can talk more about this than I do. We've had cats before, but when cats get stressed out, they're going to wreck shit. They're going to use your personal items for litter boxes, and they're going to chew up stuff and tear up things and shred furniture when they get stressed out. It's just that's how they communicate their anxiety. So don't put them in a house with a lot of stress or a lot of energy, because these cats don't like it. And last but not least, they are very expensive to purchase through reputable breeders. But as I always say, they are available. And I looked up, there are several rescues in the U.S. specifically for Persian longhairs. So if you want one, I would start there. Anything else? Anybody have it? I'd never had Persians. My mom, actually, when she was a high schooler, she worked at a local breeder's, just cleaning kennels and stuff like that. So she kind of grew up around Persians. She loved them, but I've never been around them as a cat.
No, I know we discussed Maine Coon separately. I had a Maine Coon mix, but not a Persian, which is similar in long hair, but doesn't have breathing problems because they have a normal face.
It didn't come up in the research stuff, but
they do. Yep.
Are they? I mean, what I was going to ask is, are they as big as Maine Coons? They're not, are they?
No, they're smaller. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I interjected with different. Yeah, no, they're smaller, but they're as long of hair. Like I feel like it's very similar hair, Maine Coon.
Yeah, they're moppy. Like
they get dreadlocks. Both breeds get like dreads if you don't brush them out, and like so it's like it is maintenance, like you said, and it's not like it's. I feel like it's not the same as like a dog, where like I don't know, because cats are just a little bit like they mostly just have to be brushed. Like
and they're gonna lay there and let you do it. It's not like you have to wrestle a cat to brush it out.
Sometimes, but I've had some that you'd be surprised. But yeah.
Growing up, I had a Siamese cat, which is nothing like a Persian.
Yeah,
I love Siamese. I love Siamese cats. They're so fucking cute.
This cat was mean.
Mean? They are mean, I think, aren't they? I think Siamese are like really mean.
It used to. I would be walking down the steps, and it would be at the top. It'd like high, and then as my head was like going down level, it'd like reach out and be like.
It's probably why in Lady and the Tramp, the two bad cats are Siamese.
Yeah, the evil cats.
Because they're bad. They're like mean. I mean, I love them. I think that, but they're. I think they're known for being like mean,
aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is part opposite of the Persians. I think part of that is because they're one of the more intelligent cat breeds, aren't they? Like
Siamese, probably. What about Himalayans? Those are like long-haired Siamese.
Those are gorgeous.
Those are fucking awesome. Anyway, we're on a tangent of cats, but like
This week on Cat Talk. So, Eli, what are we following up? Let the right one in on Campfire Tales.
Yeah, so there is an actual in my research, like this movie wasn't really based on a true story, but then I found it was unofficially maybe based on actual vampire story that took place in the 1930s in Stockholm, Sweden. So
there's the connection.
So this week we'll be talking about the Atlas vampire, which
Very
if
cool.
anybody goes, it's in Sweden, why was it called the Atlas vampire? No reason. It's a vampire and they just put Atlas in front of it.
Because Eli said so.
Yeah.
Sweet.
The Atlas vampire.
That's exciting. Like that literally is completely tied to the movie we watched this week. Fantastic.
I think once I tell the story, you may be
Not so
of the
much.
camp that this really doesn't have anything to do with this.
No,
Why do
but you
people
got
say this?
Sweden and vampire.
Yeah.
You got come on.
Pretty much. Yeah.
You're there.
Yeah.
You're there.
Connected
Actually,
the dots.
Listen, Dave, if I could say 3 words that just to ramp you up for what we will be discussing.
Lay it on me, brother.
3 words. Okay. Prostitutes. Police. Ladle.
It's that last word that you'll have to stay tuned for next week to really get an
And like everybody's
And
going
soup in the story.
and if anybody goes ladle, did he say ladle? Yes, I mean like a soup ladle. Plays a heavy part in this tale.
Not a vampire story I'm familiar with.
Vampire though, it is about a vampire
In Sweden.
in Sweden
Fair enough.
and a ladle.
So we'll learn more about the soup Nazi vampire origin stories
Sure.
coming up next week. We do appreciate you listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, we ask you to subscribe, rate the show, give us a review, but also leave us some comments. We love getting feedback. Visit thewickedwild.com. That's our website where we've got information about each of the hosts. We've got some book reviews, movie reviews, and just some musings. Eli has shared some of his experiences out in the field doing his paranormal investigations with Jeff that are on there as well. We also have a little shop. We've got some new merch on there. We have the official Sheila t-shirt out there. My sample came in today, and I think y'all
I
are
keep
going to
forgetting
appreciate
to
it.
purchase it. Does
You're
it
gonna
look
enjoy
great?
it.
Does it look
looks
fucking
fantastic.
great? Okay.
It's printed very well, so I'm very pleased with it. I'll be wearing it.
Can you
next
send
time.
us a picture of it on in our
Yeah,
like
yeah, I'll
chat
send you
so
one.
I can see how it printed out?
Yeah, and then we also have a new logoed merchandise piece, some hats and stuff like that, with a little Waffle House homage with the
Mhm.
Wicked Wild on it. So you have to go to the shop and check that out too, if you're interested. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do that on Twitter/X at Wicked Wild We Are, Slasher, which is the horror only community, at Wicked Wild We Are, Instagram at Wicked Wild Pod, or you can go to our YouTube and see our shining faces as we have these in-depth conversations every single week. Just search the Wicked Wild Podcast and you'll find us on there. And that community is growing and we're excited about it. And we're seeing more subscribers and people are commenting. We're so excited that you're excited. And we're looking forward to a new year of growing those communities. So if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, anything we need to know, and that includes you, Dave, up there in New Jersey, because I know this was a movie that you and Jamie were on the same page with. If you have feedback about this episode or anything that we need to know or recommendations or advice for us as podcasters, you can send that to us in an email, podcast, podcast, at thewickedwild.com. That's all I've got.
Hey, Dave, can I make our first Wicked Wild apology real quick?
Why, sure.
Thanks. I need to make an apology to the listeners. I realized over the weekend that we made a great mistake during the Camp Wicked Wild last year.
Oh,
None of us made the joke of calling it the Wicked Wieners. Like the fact that none of us did that, we have failed the audience. I apologize. The fact that I thought of that joke 4 months too late. I'm ashamed of myself, and this year I'm gonna try harder. So that's just the first Wicked Wild apology.
They're just the Wicked Wieners, is not the Wicked Wild Wieners.
No, we should have like introduced the show once as the Wicked Wieners because it was Year of the Wiener,
yeah.
and replace Wild with Wieners.
How could we have missed that? We were too busy focused on the hot dog icon.
Yeah.
We missed it.
I said that's why I just wanted to give the first Wicked Wild apology.
Well, I have to say, we're like 3 weeks into 2024, and this year's theme has yet to emerge. Unless y'all
No, we're
are
not sure yet.
not sure what we're.
We got to let it hit us like an epiphany.
It's got to be organic. I agree.
Yeah,
Right.
it came so naturally.
Yeah.
That's what she said last year.
Wow. I would
All
like to make the second official Wicked Wild apology for Jamie.
Don't ever apologize on behalf of Jamie. She'll cut you in the dark, man. She'll find you.
That sounds like a rock album. Jamie will cut you in the dark.
She cuts like a knife, and yet it feels so right.
Okay, well, this third apology I'd like to make.
Good night, everybody.
Goodness.